What's going on, you guys? Kenny from Team Moistar here, and today I'm going to be bringing you another GLC video. Now, I know it's been a minute since I've actually posted anything GLC. Truth is, I've been testing so much for the standard format. I've got Arlington Regionals this weekend, so that's something that I've had to prioritize on along with Toronto. So I haven't really had time to test GLC, but leading up to Arlington, I saw there was a GLC event. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find all the cards. I doubt the vendors will even have some of these cards too, so I'm just kind of, if I can't play it, other people can play it. This is my updated Fairy GLC deck. I had a couple people message me after they saw me looking for specific cards on Twitter, and they started to kind of like formulate theories of what the list could be, and I was just like, you know what, guys, I'll just post it. Don't worry. So, looking at the list, it's kind of built for what I think is meta right now, which I heard Psychic and Dark are very popular types, if not really good. So, as opposed to my last one, I actually added a prize taking element in Granbull. Granbull has an attack for a single fairy energy, where if you have no cards in your hand, you do 160 damage. If not, you do 30. And that combined with Lost City, which is a new card from Lost Origins, you're just able to knock out a Weezing, knock out a Guzzlord, knock out a Wobbuffet, really knock out any problem that could be towards your deck, and just eliminate it permanently. Not only that, but Granbull being able to use All Out for 30 can also fix math for Hypnotoxic Laser, which is another card I'm going to get into in a little bit later when it comes to the list. It retains really everything else, but the Snubbull that you do see on the screen is a Sun and Moon promo, where it has 1 retreat, 60 HP, which is very good, and it has an attack for 2 colorless where you flip a coin if your opponent's paralyzed, so you can loop that with Will. You can do some shenanigans with that. Stall for a turn. The 1 retreat's very nice. Carbink, I think, has the heaviest retreat aside from Slurpuff and Florges. So it can also be Elmed, which is another card that I don't believe I put in the deck originally. But everything else is pretty self-explanatory. With the ban of Amazing Earth Kyogre, of course, we can remove Sky Pillar and just keep the Mr. Mime. I tested against Lightning a little bit. They don't really play Silent Lab, but Silent Lab is a problem anyways if you do have both Mime and Sky Pillar on the board at once. So you just kind of have to accept that if your opponent gets a Raikou running and you can't find your Faba in time before they can, you're kind of screwed. But you also have access to the Hypnotoxic Laser, which is like I'm saying, I'll explain in a minute. Everything in the list is self-explanatory. The one card that I didn't have originally in there was Team Yell's Cheer. Team Yell's Cheer is broken in this deck, and if this turns out to be the perfect 60, that card will be the first card to get banned off this deck, because that card is the one that breaks this deck. It just shuffles every one of your resources back if you flip way too many tails with Florges. Not only that, but it allows you to consistently loop Will, Surge, Belelba, Cyllene, Lusamine, just so you can be as aggressive as you want. And it's so stupid, but it's so good. I believe I also added Guzma Hala from the last time the list was, which is also a very good card to have in this deck, because it's able to search you either your Slumbering Forest, your Tropical Beach, or your Lost City in the situation where you want to knock out the Weezing, and it thins down your hand in order to take that knockout with Granbull, because your hand is always going to be pretty big, but if you're able to do some Florges maneuvers with getting the Ultra Ball back from the discard pile and thinning your hand, or getting your Quick Ball back and thinning your hand, like, there's so many small things you can do with this build that I like, that's a little more intricate than the past couple builds that I've ended up testing and putting out, and I really enjoy playing this build. Now, this is a list that does take pretty much the whole damn time to play, so be wary if you are not a fast player. It's really hard to pilot this kind of deck in a timed environment. I was testing it in best of 1, 45 minutes. It passed, it was fine. Best of 3, 1 hour, 15 minutes. Game 1 was the only one that concluded, I believe, twice. So, if that's not saying, oh shit, well, this is like this is essentially like YouTube Union, where it's just like run the clock out of one game and then the rest is kind of like, well, crap. Then Professor Elms will shift your deck for 360 or HP less Pokemon, which means Ribombee can be grabbed, which was something that I liked a little bit better than Bridget and Gloria, because if you're just able to access the Ribombee quicker, that's a very good you know, early game setup / mid game setup. By like turn 2, you can literally set up your entire board with that card. Bridget can inevitably do the same thing, but like I said, Elm grabbing the Ribombee allows you to, if you have access to other basic Pokemon, you can just search it out. Then we put Field Blower back into the deck. That was something that I didn't have in the deck originally, which I kind of regretted. I was losing to Hypnotoxic because I was extremely cocky. I was like, yeah, Faba is probably the best route to take, and Faba, if you can't find it, kind of sucks. So Field Blower is also something that you can loop with Florges so that you're able to just consistently get rid of the Hypnotoxic loop. So that's a very good card. It also gets rid of Float Stones on Zoroarks, and the Faba gets rid of the Hiding Darks on the Zoroarks so that you can just Hypnotoxic Laser loop them, and it's just so crazy. Everything else is self-explanatory up here up until the Hypnotoxic Laser, which is what I've been mentioning. Hypnotoxic Laser is an older item card where you flip a coin of heads, your opponent's asleep, but they're also permanently poisoned for a minute. Permanently poisoned for a minute, wow. They're poisoned as well, but you don't have to flip for the poison, so they're... The big idea of Hypnotoxic Laser when I was going through cards was I saw Yellhorn, and then I went through my bulk and I saw Hypnotoxic Laser, and I was like, well, Yellhorn is annoying, but they can still attack when they're confused. I want to make it to where they're immobilized, and maybe even allowing me to take prize cards slowly, because I can also allow that with Granbull, which in this kind of deck you don't really want to do that, but you really needed a good out to Guzzlord, which Guzzlord is a big problem. If they just sit there and Mountain Munch your entire deck, then you have no way out, and if they just sit up there with Zoroark and then just go stand in retreat, like, it gets problematic. With Hypnotoxic Laser, if you miss the first flip, you can go, okay, Florges, put it back, and then do it again, or you could Will and then guarantee the Hypnotoxic Laser, and then pair it with Slumbering Forest, which when a Pokemon is asleep, they have to flip 2 coins in order to wake up, and if one is tails, they can't wake up. So it's a very, very annoying card, and it has worked wonders for me. It has almost auto-won the Dark matchup and the Psychic matchup. Now, don't get me wrong, the Psychic matchup is in no way free, but it does help so much. You can knock out the Guzzlord alone with the Granbull, but if you don't have access to the Granbull, the Hypnotoxic Laser is the next best thing, which is what I always like about this list in particular. It's like if one thing is prize or one thing is like unusable at the moment, you always have like a backup plan and a backup to that backup, and it's really, really cool to think about. So the Hypnotoxic Laser is really there if you want to stall and you can't quite knock out that Pokemon with Granbull, or you can't access your Granbull, because against Dark you go Wondrous Energy on a Granbull or Wondrous Energy on a Carbink, and it forces them to find ways around it, which more times than not, I don't believe that most decks play Escape Rope. I saw Dark drop it, Psychic drop it, Grass still has it. My list has it just because I'm not losing to a big fat top-hatted neutralizing gas dude. So Escape Rope is in there for that reason alone. But it's also a very good switch pivot card in the deck, which is... It's pretty good. You can throw up the Slurpuff, draw 2 cards, then Escape Rope into the Ribombee, then Ribombee into a doll. So it's pretty good. So Hypnotoxic Laser, like I said, is just one of those cards where it's like, it's a contingency plan. It does work, and it allows you to take prize cards. Some nasty things you could do, which is what I've done against stuff like Guzzlord and Weezing, where I'd just sit there all out for 30, and then let the poison start dealing in, and then I drop the Velocity the turn that they get knocked out from poison, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy. So then another card I didn't have on the list originally was Acrobatic. Acrobatic is a very, very good dig card that you do need in the deck. It's just pretty good, along with the Tag Call. Tag Call, I don't know why I didn't have it before. I guess it was just because I only played Syndicate and Blubba, and I was just like, it doesn't matter. But having Guzma Hala, Tag Call is almost necessary in this deck because you want to search out that Guzma Hala as fast as you possibly can. Slumbering Forest and Lost City are also cards that I talked about that are newer in this deck. And then another thing is the energies. We did not play energies in Fairy. I was pretty adamant you didn't have to attack. But moving forward, when a lot of people just kind of were like, okay, Fairy is bad, here's how you beat it. I was like, okay, you need to start attacking. So I added energy. Water energy is probably the best one in this deck because it prevents all effective attacks done with the Pokemon this card is attached to. So on a Granbull, it just prevents dumb things like some air poison and paralysis and anything you could really throw my way. I'm just like, haha, I'm swinging 160, knocking out your big guys that are a threat to my board, and I'm immune to some things. And then the unit energy is just another colored energy. A lot of people have said Rainbow Energy, Prism Energy. Prism Energy only works on basic Pokemon, so that would only work with stuff like Carbink. So Prism Energy is really bad, and Rainbow damages yourself. So if you were to attach it to a Granbull, then it's in Raikou range. So if they were just able to go, okay, knock out Granbull, knock out Florges. So you don't really want to do that. You really almost never want to add damage counters on your board. If you wanted to add Rainbow, you could probably add a Fairy Drop if you wanted to, which sounds crazy, or Champions Festival, which Champions Festival could also just be very, very good against Wobbuffet because they'd have to Psychic Assault for 10 every single turn, and they'd have to use, I believe, I don't know if they play Crobat from Phantom Forces, but if they're using Psychic Assault, you just Champions Festival, and then they replace it, you go Lusamine and put it back, and then Team Yell's Cheer, put the Lusamine back, and then loop. So if you really think that Psychic / Wobbuffet is a problem, you could use Champions Festival to stop things like that. Fairy Drop also accomplishes the same thing. However, it's an item card you can't loop under Wobbuffet. There are definitely cards to consider. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Maybe Hue, because Hue is also a very good card in this deck to stop people from just kind of building their hand up and eventually saying, haha, it is I, and just eventually go, no, you are not, I'm not allowing this to happen. You are not building your hand up. I will nuke your hand, and then I'm going to BLW loop you. I'm going to Hypnotoxic Laser you. Now you've got so many things going on that you can't deal with it. So that's really it for the Fairy GLC deck. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe and like for more content if you want to see more GLC decks, or if you want to see some spicy vlog action at Arlington, drop into the comment section below. Until then, guys, see you later.